officially welcome to our fourth Industry Riser with guest Shane O'Rourke. Dude, so excited you're here.
Happy to be here.
Spending time with us. I know you're in a busy season, so it just feels good to have you here. We appreciate you just taking time to come out.
Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, 100%.
Pumped to be here.
So the goal for the goal really is to all move in the direction towards freedom. That's like what we're chasing after, thing that I think we care the most about.
Yep.
And I think that comes through just collectively sharing ideas, having great conversations with people like yourself, authentic about what's working, not working at times, and just in navigating how we do life well.
Yep.
So that's the thing that we're chasing after, and we're excited to be learning from you. So.
Hope so.
So you're doing a lot of stuff. I
Yeah.
want to get a quick little background on you before we super dive in. But for those who don't know you, you founded an awesome nonprofit, Lift Up,
Yep.
worldwide, reaching projects all over the world. Yep. But you're also producing insurance that helps fund the nonprofit. You actually now hold your real estate license. I heard this is recent news.
Very recent.
And then you guys just kicked off a brand new company, Digital Butler, helping businesses grow through online marketing, SEO.
All digital marketing.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Dude, all things business. But you're also father to two?
That's right.
Husband?
Like you're living the dream.
Yeah. Okay, so give us a bit of a background. That's just like your overview, but help us get to know you a little bit more as a person too.
Yeah, totally. Well, born and raised in Minnesota. Come from a big family, so I've kind of born into chaos. I had 8 siblings, kind of know what it means.
8 siblings?
8.
Wow.
3 are adopted.
Okay,
so
cool.
5 biological siblings, and so it's been, Christmas is nuts.
Yeah.
I'm just used to big families, used to kind of multitasking. There's a lot going on, so I think that helped me a little bit in the confines of starting multiple companies, multiple things. But
organized chaos.
Organized chaos, yes.
Where in the ranking are you of? You're number 2.
I'm number 2.
Oldest.
Second oldest.
Okay.
Yep. So I kind of feel like I'm the oldest though.
Okay.
My older brother was off to the races when he was like 17.
Got it.
And he's like 5 years older than me. So I was like 12 and the man of the house. It felt
there
like.
You go.
So
just
at least
strapped in.
Yeah, taking care of siblings and all sorts of fun stuff. So.
Because how young is your youngest sibling?
So biological youngest is down to like, I think he's 19, and then adopted is 10.
Okay, wow.
So
big spread.
And
are they still in the Twin Cities?
Most of them, yep.
Shotgunned around?
Yep, kind of all over the place.
Okay.
My oldest brother, he's out in Manhattan Beach, California.
Okay.
Then I've got a sister married to an Air Force guy out in Oklahoma on a base. But other than that, everybody's here.
Cool.
Local.
I love it.
Yeah.
And hobbies? What are you doing if you're not doing one of your 4 companies?
Yeah. I'm either playing basketball or flying to the beach.
Okay.
Those are my 2 favorite things.
I love it.
And if it's July, then I'm trying to wake surf. That's my favorite thing.
Is that thing you do?
It is, yeah. I
always thought I could wake surf, and I don't think I can. I've resigned to that. I think as a kid, because I grew up in small town Wisconsin, but on Lake Michigan.
Okay.
I think it's like the #1 windsurfing capital.
Yeah.
In the country.
Yeah.
Wisconsin. Who would have thought? It's also sad I'm not totally confident anymore. I used to say it growing up. I'm pretty sure it still rings true. Things change fast. It looks so easy.
It does.
As a kid, I'm like, oh, sweet. You throw your kite up, you're rocking and rolling, you're crushing waves. I'm like, I think I'd kill myself.
So that's what I think too, because I'm
there.
like, there's rocks everywhere.
Yes.
Big rocks, big problem.
It looks awesome though.
It does.
Have you've successfully done it?
Well, I actually don't kite surf, so I wake surf behind like.
Oh wait, look at me! I'm talking about windsurfing.
Hey,
over here.
I think windsurfing's even cooler. But yeah,
wake surfing behind the wake surfing boats.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yep.
I've done that.
It's fun.
Not killed myself yet.
That seems safer.
Much safer.
Unless you get the rope wrapped around your leg.
That's no good.
Did that one time.
Okay. That feels pretty
that
scary.
does not feel good. Dragged underwater.
No.
Malibu.
That's no good.
Too strong.
Yes. Malibu the boat, not Malibu the cocktail.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Both would be a problem.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so fill us in. How did you start? Lift Up was the initial, if I'm explaining this right, for career moves.
Yep.
Lift Up is your first big,
first baby
launch, your first baby.
Yep.
Tell us about what Lift Up is first.
Yeah. Well, I'll kind of start with kind of the heart behind why it started.
Yeah.
And that was, I was a junior in college right at Bethel here in St. Paul. And I heard about a school that needed some support. It was run by a 75-year-old couple. The husband passed away. It was a 75-year-old lady running this school.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I could help. And I had J-term coming up. And I was like, I'm going to go help whatever I can do to support this school. It's in the mountains of Haiti, 300 kids.
Wow.
So I fly out there for the month of January.
Yeah.
Have an unbelievable time, fall in love with the community and the people, but primarily this one kid stuck with me. His name was Kenzie. He's 8 years old. He's kicked out of school because he can't afford a pair of shoes. His one chance at a free education, his only hot meal a day is coming from the school.
Wow.
I'm like, can somebody get this kid a pair of shoes?
No kidding.
It's $5 to get him a pair of shoes in Haiti. Found him a donated pair, got him to him. He's back in school the next morning.
Wow.
And over the next couple of years, I went back 4 times and saw him educated, thriving, had access to opportunities.
Yeah.
Was just everything, nutrition, everything he needed.
Yeah.
And I was like, and obviously there's a lot to that story, but a $5 pair of shoes changed his trajectory of his life overnight.
Awesome.
And I was like, okay, no one knows this kid even exists. How do we give visibility to people like this that deserve it? So I came home and then started Lift Up, which is a platform that essentially is fundraising for stories like that. So tangible needs, whether it's a water well, a school, an orphanage, a bed right here in the Twin Cities for a single mom who needs a bed for a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff like that where you can choose, like donors get to choose from a menu of certified projects around the globe, what you want to give to. And then you get to know 100% goes. So that's one of our biggest differentiators. Every penny in goes back out.
Yeah.
And so, you know what 100% is going to go.
Wow.
We believe every dollar makes a difference. We give every single one away. And then lastly, you get to see the impact in a really tangible way through photos, videos, GPS coordinates, the exact amount of people impacted.
Yeah, I remember being really inspired by the platform when I first saw it. This is probably, almost 5 years ago? Because you guys have been around for, 6?
6 in September.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So I remember seeing that platform initially and being like, it's so smart, right? Because there's multiple projects you can choose from. You can read the story behind it.
Totally.
The 100% thing is a huge deal. Yeah. Every time you go to a restaurant, they ask you to donate. You're like,
but where?
I don't even know that this is going towards
Totally.
This going towards it and over 100%. So I remember that feeling like just a really cool thing.
Yep.
And it's great to see like the project goal, right? It's like a tracker.
Yep.
Which makes it feel exciting to be like,
real time.
This kind of moves the needle.
See you move the needle if you give to it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So what in the last 6 years have you guys done with Lift Up? You kind of launched off this awesome story.
Yep.
Where has Lift Up gone over the last 6 years?
Yeah, well, what's really cool is we're most proud of just the number of people impacted. And so you look at it starting with one kid and a pair of shoes almost 6 years ago, and we're about to eclipse 250,000 people impacted. So that's like our favorite thing. Is like that is so cool to see in 25 countries here in the US. But now we're actually working on V2, kind of a different version of Lift Up to bring it home. Yeah. Because it's worked really well. We've got a ton of traction, but we're trying to basically fit it to the local context of the American needs.
Got it.
Which are not water wells, schools, and orphanages.
Yep.
They are the single mom who's about to lose custody over her 6-year-old because she can't afford a twin bed. And so it's like, how do we get visibility for that need in a really dignifying way where people can get exactly what they need and you can help meet it with the click of a button? Because I think people want to help, but so often they don't know where to start or who to look to.
Yeah.
And so they're like, unless maybe there's a GoFundMe out there with your friend or something, there's just no way to know, like, in your neighborhood, where is the need? Yeah. And so we geo-point these things in a general area. We don't obviously use addresses, but like, hey, in Minneapolis, these are the 17 things going on right now that you can help with. And same deal, 100%. You get to see the story. You get to see the vetted partner you're working with, and then a photo of that being delivered to them a couple days later.
Love it. It's such a great like blue ocean of opportunity because number one, some of these projects are so big usually.
Yes.
That it feels like, oh, the $50 I can give is a drop in the bucket.
Totally.
Versus it being local, so centered to home, and then being like, oh, maybe this need is only $150.
100%.
Or $250 or whatever.
And we're hoping we'll have those $50 needs for those people. Yeah. Where they can come in and you can filter and be like, what's under $50?
Yeah.
You can go and you can see it. This family, 1.5 miles away from you, needs diapers.
Yeah.
$50 of diapers goes a long way.
Super helpful. So how is that different than GoFundMe?
Yeah, well, the main thing is the vetting.
Okay.
Right, so the vetting is everything's vetted through like referral partners who are nonprofits, churches, social workers, government agencies that are doing the work on the ground and face-to-face with the people. And so the amount of vetting that goes on and audit checks and fraud check, all that stuff is just anyone can launch a GoFundMe.
Sure.
And then the 100% model is the biggest thing too. There's no fees, all that stuff, which really sets us apart.
That's cool.
And then that targeted effect of like, it doesn't have to be too small, and you don't have to give away who you are.
Yeah.
So like, it's dignified, it's through the right channels, and you give 100%.
I love it. Are you, so this V2 of Lift Up, is this Minneapolis? Is this going to be anywhere in the I mean, you know, is it going to be in the U.S. out of the gate, or actually get there?
Out of the gates, the Twin Cities.
Okay.
So it'll be the rest of this calendar year. We'll be out in the Twin Cities. It's launching next month.
Yeah.
And so we'll do the Twin Cities for about 6 months.
Okay.
And then we're gonna beta test in like 3 other big markets, probably like Chicago, somewhere in Wisconsin, and then maybe LA.
Okay.
And so the hope is, though, by 2027, we're in every big market in the country.
Sweet. That's the big goal.
Yep.
Chasing after it.
Yep.
What have you learned about running a nonprofit and scaling a nonprofit? I think it's totally different. Well, I could be wrong, but I think it's a different model than your for-profit, like how you scale it or some of the decisions that you make along the way.
For sure.
Are different than a for-profit. So
for sure.
What have been some of the things that you've learned for other people who have been interested about starting a nonprofit, or that's an area they're focused on? What have you learned in your 6 years in the nonprofit world?
Yeah, you know, I think I've learned there's a huge need for collaboration in the nonprofit space, where I think sometimes there can be a scarcity mindset of we're all like trying to grab the same donors, when I think that if we actually work together, I think we can get way more done. And there's so much overlap happening that if we can really find a way to do like identify gaps together, we're going to help a lot more people. And so that's one piece, is the collaboration is huge. But I think what I've learned is it's a lot more about inspiration than anything else, right? So you got to find people that are very aligned with what you're trying to accomplish. And that's true in business too, but even more so in the nonprofit space of like, we need alignment.
Yeah.
Because we've had people come in and be like, we want to do this with you and this with you, and they're trying to change what we do. And ultimately, it's super important that you stick to kind of the vision, the goal of what that nonprofit is supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then use collaboration to kind of fill those gaps around you. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting niche now that I have some for-profit companies as well.
Yeah.
There's different challenges, but different things that are so cool about it, where you find people way more willing to give their time to support a nonprofit, right? And volunteer and even do some staffing type stuff for free.
Yep.
Because it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And the work is so cool that I find myself in moments surprised by the amount of people rallying around it. But I'm realizing it's something fulfilling for them, and I don't have to sell something that's changing the world. That's right. They just get to be a part of it and see the difference themselves.
I think that's totally the case. I talked about this in a past one of these, but this time money contribution aspect. You know, a lot of times people have enough time and enough money, but they're not fulfilling this sense of like, I'm not really doing anything to help anybody else. And that's
100%.
I think we're wired as people to want to help.
100%.
And to give, and I think you get to that point where you're just like, I'm not doing anything to help anybody, and you want to scratch that itch of contribution.
Totally.
And so that's a great space then to kind of do all that.
Yep.
What have been some of the key people in Lift Up organization to get you where you guys are? What have you found to be important in that sector?
Yep.
Who's on your staff? How have you guys navigated the hiring side of things? You have full-time people, part-time people?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting. I think a lot of it is dependent on who you are as the leader.
Okay.
Because you need to complement yourself well. So I have learned a lot about myself for the last 6 years of what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And that's what I hire first, is what I identify as like my biggest weakness is the organizational admin side.
Okay.
So that was our first full-time hire.
Cool.
And that like changed the game for us, because everything was on time, organized, and administratively perfect. And so that was great. So I think that's part of it, is like where is your organization lacking because you as a leader built it, it's your baby.
Yep.
But then where are you dropping the ball because it's not your skill set?
Yeah.
And instead of trying to just course correct or overcompensate, how do you get staff in those spots? So we have a lady who's awesome named Maggie, and she worked middle management at Target. She's done this stuff all the time. Awesome. And she, as our first full-time hire, really took on that role of like, how do we execute the vision that's being produced here, right? So like if I have a big vision and all of that, then she's like, okay, well, let's put this in steps. Let's get it done. Yeah. So that's huge. But on top of that, I think it's just people who are drivers, because it's a space where you need to be really good at storytelling. You need to be able to really inspire people. because you're not actually providing a service.
Yeah.
So that's like what I found is the biggest challenge, and it has surprised me almost how easy it is to sell a service in the for-profit space. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actually giving them value.
Yeah.
Like, that's easy to sell.
There's an exchange.
Yeah, we're like, on the nonprofit side, there's value. There's ROI of fulfillment. There's ROI of you get to see an impact, but ultimately a tax write-off.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're not giving them something.
Yeah.
You're not doing their marketing. You're not giving them an insurance policy. So that's been interesting of like, you really need people who can be self-motivated and can really drive an organization forward, because you're either falling back or you're moving forward. And that seems more so in the nonprofit space. Like, you always need to be gaining momentum and driving.
Yeah. I can imagine it can be tough too with the right people coming on board who also have the capacity for it, because you probably have a lot of people who are like, oh, I love the vision.
Yep.
I want to do this, but they're just already doing so much else. It's like, I got the capacity also to help. You know, or whatever, even they share in the vision and all that kind of stuff. But capacity is probably huge.
That's our number one issue and challenge for sure.
That makes sense.
And you get people who are just so excited about it, so pumped to help. And 3 months later, they're gone.
Burnt out, so don't have time.
Don't have time, realize it's too much, they've overcommitted. And what's the first thing to go? Thing doesn't make them money. And so that's been a challenge of like, because we started off very volunteer heavy. And so you're trying to build like team building's hard in itself of finding the right people. And then doing it without a paycheck is even a little bit more challenging. So so that's when we started hiring, is when we're like, we have people we know need to be on this team. And that's when it was like, let's start hiring, because we can't lose these people.
So you have now a couple of full-time or part-time people?
So we actually have one full-time.
Okay.
We have some contracted help as well. So like our marketing, some stuff like that kind of overlap between Digital Butler and Lift Up and stuff. So we're sharing resources there, which is cool. But still a big chunk of our support is volunteer.
Wow.
Which is interesting. It's been kind of navigating that 100% model without that and fiscal sustainability. And so what's nice is this V2 Lift Up Local concept has a lot of fiscal sustainability built into it and revenue generating pieces. But the global side we've done for the last 6 years just doesn't. And so it's been a lot of capital campaigning, private donors excited to help fund staff. And so
Okay. Are you going to keep up the Lift Up the kind of worldwide? That's still going to keep going, but Lift Up Local is just another
branch.
Branch off.
Another branch. So the hope is they feed each other. Right. So you have kind of the audience grow on both sides. And you can kind of find out what your passion point is as you come to the site and the platform.
Cool. The insurance side of it. So you hold your insurance license, property and casualty, right on top of it. It's a generational insurance company, right, as well on top of it. How much of that plays a role into Lift Up? Because if I remember right, and I could be totally wrong, but there's a kind of a sustainability to it through the insurance. So part of the goal of all these different companies and things is building an ecosystem that's a force for good. And so with insurance, we take a chunk of every policy and feed it right into what we call the core of Lift Up, which is that operational side. Stands for cover operational recurring expenses. And so we've got a percentage of every policy. So as that grows, and then people excited about Lift Up, they're excited to have their insurance written through us. And then we're a broker, so we can shop it, so it's easy to find stuff for people. And then that chunk goes right in. So the more we write, and obviously it's a renewal-based business, the bigger the book gets, the bigger the funding gets for Lift Up, which is super cool. Super cool. Do you think you could have gotten, like, how much of a role did that insurance side of things play into the success and growth of Lift Up? Do you think that was a big piece to the equation? And you know, if you didn't have that, how difficult would it be to?
I think early on it was a really big deal. Because early on we were trying to get funding, trying to prove the model, and insurance was kind of holding us up. And that was super helpful. And then it got to a point where we proved the concept, there was credibility, and then a bunch of other donors came along. So I think it was primarily pivotal at the first 2 to 3 years of keeping us sustainable, getting some contracted staff, getting this thing going. And having that buffer of just a budget to be able to spend money on stuff we needed.
Makes sense. I've never really played in like the nonprofit space, and so I've heard that's just a difficulty. I mean, makes sense. Funding is a huge piece to the whole equation, and so pretty cool that I think you saw such a need, like it was such a tangible thing for you down in Haiti, so long ago, and then recognizing what was at your disposal, and being able to launch it. From there. So how much of your time is insurance? A A little bit?
Great
I can't imagine it's that. My year didn't so much. So
Yeah, I'd say it's probably in the ballpark of 10 to 15 hours a week.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a decent chunk of stuff, but
Yeah.
it fluctuates. It's
Yeah.
week to week, what comes up, what's going on, and thankfully I've got a really good team.
Sweet.
And so like as I'm building that over the last few years, like there's people that can handle pieces of the business for me
Yeah.
as different things happen, right? Because if there's two urgent things,
Yeah.
gotta have a good team.
Yeah, that's right. And now you just got your real estate license.
Sure did.
On top of it, it's like
Sure did.
already busy guy, just stack it
Yeah,
on.
why not?
What's the idea behind that?
You know, it started with I got an Airbnb in Florida.
Okay.
And was sending a bunch of referrals out there.
Right.
And I was like, well, might as well get my license and get some business going with the referrals.
Yeah.
But then I realized, you know what? I got a massive family. I've got a big network, and I'm hands deep in like real estate transactions
Yep.
via insurance.
Right.
And so in my thought process was like, well, why don't I just help people with both? Like, how nice would it be to have one-stop shop? I can
Right.
give them insurance feedback on while we're walking through showings.
That's cool.
And just have one person handle both things. I was like, I feel like
Yeah.
people love the convenience.
That's great.
Of stuff. So that was
Super
kind of
cool.
it felt like a natural fit.
Yeah. How did you get into the Airbnb space? You kind of just threw that out there like it was
Yeah.
no biggie. Like, I got Airbnb down Florida.
Yeah,
too. How did
yeah.
that come about?
You know, it's always been a passion of mine. Just like I understand how amazing of an investment real estate is, and the concept of one, I love Florida,
Yeah.
so you can't. I'm trying to
doesn't?
have a place I can just fly to go to the beach, and then two, my dad was interested, and we do a lot of business together through insurance. So I was like,
Okay.
hey, Dad, let's partner up and do this thing.
Oh, cool.
And so that was kind of another partnership as we're spending days together in the office. But
Yeah.
I really wanted to get something that could build, obviously, appreciation, all this stuff,
Yep.
but really have something that was fun
Yeah.
and an investment.
Yeah.
And so that was just super fun to have something where we could get away. And I felt like there was some good markets in Florida.
Totally.
And the demand from Minnesota to Florida alone, I was like, I could fill this thing with just my friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just
Awesome.
decided to kind of take a leap of faith and go for it.
That's cool. Did you buy that? Is this a COVID purchase?
So this is right after COVID, right before Hurricane Ian blew our roof off.
Oh, jeez. Tough time.
So yeah, it was fine. But
Well, you're the insurance guy, so
That's right.
Did you settle up on yourself?
we sure did.
Good.
Yeah, made a little money off it, I think.
Yeah, sweet.
It was good.
Okay, before we talk about Digital Butler,
Yeah.
it's clear juggling so much. As many entrepreneurs do, we get excited about opportunities.
Yeah.
We get excited about what's possible.
Yep.
And I think we fight temptations to like slow ourselves down.
Yes.
So we're such a
Yes.
unfortunate sucker for great opportunities and doing more, which is a cool thing. There's a lot of amazing things that come along with that. How do you find time to balance that and spend time where lots of theories on like how many bridges you put up before building the next one?
Yep.
You have to be a fully built bridge before
Yep.
you start the next one.
Yep.
How have you navigated that thus far?
Yep.
So we got one more big white elephant, which is Digital
Yeah.
Butler, which
Yeah.
is getting launched too. So.
Yeah. I think something that's helped me is, in the bridge concept, to me, is the team. How much of the team is built before I build the next bridge?
Yeah, it's good.
Because if the team can handle 75% of the work, I feel confident to build another bridge.
Got it.
And so it almost has less to do with the structure, the system, more to do with the capacity in the room. And so if I feel like the team it's fiscally sustainable and the team can handle 75% of the work, I can always fill that 25% personally
it.
if I need to.
Yep.
And then I move into that next thing.
Got it.
And so what's cool is as I'm building this ecosystem, it does feel like they're complementing each other. And so there's like a skill set learned from one being translated to the other.
Yeah.
So it's not like, wow, I'm starting from scratch.
Right.
So it's like half that bridge is already built
Yep.
as soon as we move over.
Yep.
And the network understands like, hey, this is something they've been doing. And so there's a lot of warm leads there. And so trying to figure out like certain opportunities, to your point, there's good and there's great.
Totally.
So that's the challenge. How do you identify the good to say no,
Yeah.
so you can
Yeah.
say yes to the great?
Yeah.
And for us, it's been what's the piece that matches the ecosystem we're building
Yeah.
and what can drive that forward.
That's smart. Yeah, I've always said like not every good opportunity is the right opportunity.
Bingo.
And it's hard to know the difference. Like what's the key ingredients to
Yep.
making a great opportunity from
Yep.
good, and good can end up inevitably being a hard distraction.
100%.
From what
100%.
could have been a great.
Yep.
Then people start. They find these great opportunities.
Yep.
And they mix in a bunch of good ones,
And it
then
slows them down. Yep.
it all flattens out.
Yep.
It's like you actually missed out on your big swing.
Exactly.
To your other one.
Exactly.
Okay, Digital Butler.
Yes.
It's new. New company as of
January. Kicking off the year strong.
Digital Butler does
all digital marketing. So it's primarily branding, social and content creation, websites, and then video production.
Okay. Why go that direction? Was it seeing it in the market and like saying, hey, we could do that better, or is it a need of your own that then it was like, oh, I should just start a company then, as a byproduct?
Yeah, this one was actually the most obvious, which is surprising. Lift Up in general has been very much a marketing platform, right?
Yeah.
How do we inspire? How do we tell stories? How do we do world-class content to get people to build a credible nonprofit?
Yeah.
And so we had companies reaching out to us asking like, who does your marketing? I'm like, it's all in-house. We've been in it. So we've learned a lot over the last 6 years, and we got so many leads that I was like dishing them out to all these people. And I was like, we had this board meeting and we're like, how do we fiscally sustain this next stage of Lift Up? And I was like, why don't we start a marketing company? We're already doing it. We already have team for it.
Yeah.
And so we basically translated and was birthed out of the platform of Lift Up. And so that's been really cool to see, because all of our clients come in and they're like, do what you did with Lift Up for us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great, let's do it.
That's cool. I mean, obviously it's always great. I asked that question in the twofold prong, because it seems like some entrepreneurs just identify a need in the market that maybe it's not a problem they're solving, but they're solving somebody else's obvious problem. Or it's just to solve their own.
Totally.
They come across it in their own business, or maybe less of a problem solved, but more of just like people kind of keep coming my direction for this thing. I might as well take advantage of that.
Build a brand around it.
Yeah.
So it is, I guess that would be kind of the market need as people are reaching out for it. But I think people just want great content. They want to look good online as everything's shifting online, and
totally
something we've worked hard on the last 6 years. So
yeah. Are you leveraging AI?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Seems like everybody.
AI is half my team.
Is it?
Yeah.
I have to still try and figure it out.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just me being a big dummy, but I'm so much more I just want to be so hands-on. It's
100%.
I just don't know how to let go.
Yeah.
And
it's hard.
And let the robots help me.
And the robots, they're just foundational. They can't make anything unique for you, really. So you still have to massage stuff and all of that, but it's a helpful starting point.
Yeah.
It's like the bulk of just content and copywriting and all that stuff.
There's a lot to it.
There's a lot of time it saves.
And who are you specifically trying to is it just anybody who's running a business that wants to be more prevalent online and those things, or who are you specifically working with in that space?
Yeah, so we've learned a lot over the last 5 months as we've launched. We've worked with all sorts of industries, from restaurants to hair salons to travel agents to real estate, like all sorts of industries. And we're learning what we can really deliver the best on.
Okay.
And I feel like it's really your brand story and who you are and your content.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where we're going more niching into.
Okay.
We have some opportunities, whether it's niching into specific, just one industry like healthcare, or if we're going to have a few industries.
Right.
But that is the primary niche right now we're seeing, is we're providing the most value through content and creation of stories and your brand consistency.
Stories sell.
People want consistency across the board on all their platforms, and they want their story to be heard.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to do.
Not always easy. Yeah. What is the goal with Digital Butler? How far? How fast?
Yep.
What are you guys hoping to do there?
Yeah, I'd love to get it to... It's grown the fastest of anything I've launched.
Okay.
And so I'd love for that to be kind of the main engine behind a lot of this ecosystem.
Okay.
I think marketing, it just has a massive potential, high ceiling, and just what people are willing to put the effort into, but mostly the budget into. So they want it to be hands off, they want to give it to you, all that stuff. So yeah, I'd love for it to be huge.
Are you working with people all across the country?
Yeah. Yep. So we're in about 5 states right now. Cali, Florida, here, Indiana, Wisconsin.
And you acquired them just through connections that you already knew or whatever?
Primarily it's been word of mouth. We got started and it's just people are talking about us.
Yeah.
So we're trying to just do the best work we can, execute with excellence, and people are noticing.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So amidst all these things now that you're running, right? So that's kind of the full breadth of your stuff, which is crazy. It took us that long to get through. But so freedom, something that obviously that we care a lot about. We're moving in that direction. That's why we have Rise Realty. Yep. We want to help agents leverage real estate to create freedom and movement in their life.
Right.
Because it's a very powerful asset. So we care a lot about it. How are you doing that or experiencing freedom in your own life amidst running some big engines?
Yeah.
What's that been like for you? Has it been hard? Have you found a lot of joy in it? Is it both?
Honestly, it's day to day. I think there's a lot of days where it's joyful and it's like, man, I'm just pumped to be living this entrepreneurial life. And there's all this fulfillment through Lift Up, and that stuff is super joyful and like super fulfilling. Then there's other days where I'm like chicken with my head cut off. I'm like, man, what am I doing? I've got staff traveling, and that was like, that's the business that took off today and just needs a lot of work done. So there are times where it's hard, where it's like, all right, got the kids down, it's 9:30 and now I'm working till 2. Yeah. And it's just, that happens. And so it's funny. I feel like it's kind of the entrepreneurial life, but it's like, there's days where you just feel like, man, what in the world am I doing?
I know.
And then there's other days where you're like, I am him. Like, let's go. This is amazing. But I'd say every month you have both of those days. Yeah. And so it's really trying to figure out what is your flow and how do you set up systems and teams to give you that freedom.
Processes, systems, 100%. Automation.
Yep.
It makes the life of AI.
Yep.
So I don't know if this is a consistent theme or not. It appears that way, but so many entrepreneurs, their biggest weakness is the admin, the operations side of it. Like, we're just like, boom, like, just give me the next thing. Yep. And so I hear that consistently. For my first hire, admin. Yep. First hire was somebody to keep the details together.
Yes. Accountability, all that stuff.
Accountability. We're just as on most entrepreneurs, what it seems to be is just that's not the gifting, that's not the skill set. Totally. We're chasing after.
Totally.
We're
just selling
the next
all day.
egg, and it's which is kind of a cool thing. Yeah. So it's a cool part of how we're all wired. It's very complementary. Yeah. For how everyone's a little bit different.
Totally.
What would you do different? I'm curious, like, you rewind the clock to pre-Lift Up, the kickstart of it all.
Yep.
What do you wish you had done differently if there is one, if there is something that stands out?
I would have delegated sooner. I think there was a long period of time that I thought if I didn't do it, it wasn't going to be to the level of excellence that I needed it to be. Yeah. And maybe at the very beginning that was true because there was no example and there was nothing, but within a year, I could have handed stuff off, and it probably took me 3 years to really be like, I'm going to hand social media. I did social media for 3 years for Lift Up. Every piece of it. I designed it, I wrote the captions, and I published it. Wow. And that was the stuff that was like,
What stopped you from delegating it? Was it control? Was it financial? Was it both?
It was both.
Okay.
It was both. Once we found someone to volunteer do it, and that's when I was like, we're doing it. Let's do it. And she was awesome, and she's still on the team now, but she is amazing, and she's working Digital Butler and Lift Up, which is super fun.
Very cool.
But yeah, it was really finding someone that, because I had a few attempts at it where they did like 5 posts and they were brutal, and I was like, I got to take this back. Yeah. And so I think that's almost scarred me a little of like, I'm not going to find anybody. I gotta do it myself. And so it really was the process of understanding how important the team is. I would have built it sooner. I would have been like, that is the first thing I need to focus on, because it's the whole concept, that popular statement of like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but you want to go far, go together.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think I was going fast, but borderline burning myself out.
Yes.
And then not giving enough time to my family.
Yes.
And so the most important thing is family.
Yep.
And so you've got to build team first, and you got to just get that in position. I honestly would have thought through like the ecosystem and been like, what staff member could fit roles in both companies or 3 companies? How could I have someone oversee admin in the entire ecosystem? Like, that's the stuff I'm thinking about now that I should have been thinking about a while ago.
With as connected as your industries are,
yes,
it makes sense to try and bring one person in.
Yep.
Because it can be a hard thing for newer small businesses, is finding somebody that they can afford to pay.
Yep.
And have the work to keep up, with it. And so if you've got multiple, then you can satisfy, what feels like a very comfortable salary for somebody.
Yes.
As well as like, it's clear you're kind of getting,
yep.
They're spreading around the whole thing.
And share that expense across multiple companies in a startup phase is super valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
what ways are you feeling like you are experiencing freedom currently? Because freedom can change over time.
Yep.
And maybe we get snippets of it now, or maybe you're already like, this is, we have everything we would hope in terms of freedom. So what ways do you think you've been able to experience it?
It's a great question. And I was thinking about the definition of freedom the last couple days. And I was like, I remember on like long vacations we've taken on the beach where it's like you get to like day 8 and I'm like feeling stir crazy. Like I need to be productive.
Yep.
So I don't think freedom necessarily is like an empty calendar.
That's good.
But I do think freedom is the ability to like you get to set your calendar and you can work on your passion projects however long you want to.
Yep.
And then the next step of freedom is you get to help whenever you want to because you're financially free.
Yep.
And so for me, what I feel like I've got a lot of like schedule freedom as far as I set my schedule because there's just so much that I'm doing and like have teams built. And so that is an ongoing process.
Yes.
Like in the startup phase, there's always days where you're like, I don't want to do any of this.
Yep.
But there's other days where you're like, all right, this is great. Like I have team, I feel free as a bird. Like this is awesome.
Yep.
And so I really try to make sure that I am never tied into something that's too crazy at tying my schedule down.
Yeah.
But Lift Up is a huge part of that freedom of feeling like we're really doing something fulfilling. And I've got a lot of the work I don't enjoy that drains me off on staff now.
That's a huge piece to it.
Yeah.
Because we all have to do stuff we don't love to do that keeps kind of things afloat. But when you can really get to the point of like delegating out the stuff that's, even if it's 20% of what you do, that 20% can feel like 80% if it's not the right activity for you.
Bingo.
Then it makes you resent the industry that you're in. It makes you want to give up on the whole business. It's just like this like crazy sort of piece that happens. And so sometimes that people try and take on all the wrong stuff because we all have to make fearful jumps at times.
You gotta do it scared.
You gotta hire somebody when money's already tight. You gotta delegate when it already feels like it's out of your you don't want to give up control. You try some things out. It's a fearful jump.
It is.
But the alternative is things maybe just don't go anywhere then as a result.
Sounds worse to me.
Could be even worse.
Yeah.
What things along your journey have also, like, for example, kind of landing the plane as a whole here, things that you've found to be really pivotal in your career, whether it's certain resources like books, podcasts, maybe it's a mentor or something like that. Because it seems to me that people find inspiration. Entrepreneurs are kind of marked by perseverance and grit, and they take resources like that and leverage them to get to where they need to be. Is there anything specifically that like, wow, that was transformative in my entrepreneurial journey where I got there?
I do think, and mentorship's huge. Coaching's huge. I think it's primarily though, whether they're in your life, like physically directly or not, I think it's getting in the circle of influence of people who are where you want to be. That's huge. Like they gotta be able to encourage you of like, hey, we've been through the season you've been to. It's a grind. Just persevere. There's breakthrough on the other side of perseverance. Yeah. And so I think that's been what's been huge for me and some of these people, like, there's one lady named Brittany Turner that's huge in the nonprofit or in the real estate space, and she has just done really cool space in impact and real estate, and it's been really cool. I had an opportunity. She owns an island out in BVI, like crazy stuff. No big deal.
Very nice.
Yeah, but it's just very cool to see like she's like 3 steps ahead of me. Yeah. And so to have that in mind.
Well, and you're 3 steps away from an island.
I hope.
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know how big, maybe leaps. Maybe leaps. But I've learned so much from her and got to spend a week like out there for this nonprofit thing. And I learned so much, but then her podcast is like something I've listened to daily. That's like, it just changes your mindset. And when you have
what's the podcast?
It's called Broke to Woke.
Broke to Woke.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And it was started before that had a different meaning, but it's been just really helping my mindset. They've got one guy on it. She's on it talking real estate. There's a guy on it talking stocks. Sweet. And they just talk about how they reach financial freedom and independence.
Got it.
And I think that's been something that's really changed the trajectory of how I think about assets. The book Rich Dad, Poor Dad was kind of a part of that. And that just, when you're making decisions for the long term, like it helps you persevere in the short term.
Totally.
Because you need the big picture in mind. And I think that's what those people help you with, of like, hey, you're going to get here.
Yeah.
But here's the steps we took. Yeah. And sometimes they're even involved in helping financially get you there.
Yeah.
So that's what I've tried to like reframe my circle of like, who are the 5 closest people to me? And even if I can only get in proximity through podcasts, that's still proximity. Yeah. And so just the inflows. What am I putting in my like mentally? What am I listening to? What am I talking to?
Huge. Yeah. I feel like so many of like the people I inspired to be like have had a very similar answer. Yeah. It's like it's a purely about being around others that were thinking so much bigger. Yep. And honestly, that was part of the reason we started this concept. It's to sit down and be with people that are challenging us to think in a bigger sense. Yep. For that same exact reason. Yep. you owe a lot to the people that you're around.
You do.
Just as a whole. So
Sure. Yeah.
have you ever been a part of like groups? I'm curious. Like, are you just approaching for these types of people that you're trying to be around?
Yep.
Are you just approaching them, trying to get like time around them? Are you actually like, you can join these big, groups, and that it's a pretty big expense to doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I've done primarily the one-to-one approach.
Okay.
So I haven't done a lot of big groups.
Yeah.
I know there's a ton of value in that.
Yeah.
But I've just had a blessing of my network having some high capacity people where I just was able to kind of tap them on the shoulder directly and be like, hey, whatever you have, what can you give me?
Yeah, super cool.
15 minutes a quarter.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah,
so,
take it.
Yeah. So that's been, there's some expense to that sometimes, but that's kind of how I've started. And a lot of it was for the nonprofit to start, which the budget wasn't there for those big groups. So I think that's how I kind of tried to get scrappy.
Kind of had to do it.
Get in people's world.
Grassroots. Just making good connections.
That's right. Getting their flight patterns. That's what I've learned. Like what their life is, if you can make it easy for them to connect with you and do the intentionality way of like getting in their world.
Yeah.
That usually shows enough intentionality. Like, yeah, we'll meet with you.
Yeah. Where do you think you'll be 10 years from now?
Oh man, on an island.
The big thing on the island. Honestly, I'm 3 steps away from it anyway.
Can I take 3 steps? To
10
years?
3 steps to an island.
I think so.
That's a book. 3 steps to an island.
Yeah, exactly. So I would love in 10 years to have. There's a lot of things we're dreaming about right now. I'd love for Lift Up to be a household name when you want to help somebody. Yeah. That's the platform you go to.
Cool.
I'd love to be doing more in the orphan care space. That's something my wife and I feel very called to.
Awesome.
Safe houses on the beach in Florida, all this stuff. So we're dreaming about a lot there. We want to have Lift Up is ideally going to have schools in 5 different countries. That would be Lift Up schools that we're potentially working on starting in Haiti. So that's kind of the Lift Up vision, and then local being the American platform to help each other.
Yeah.
So that, and then obviously scaling companies to a point where you're able to say, hey, we can spend 90% of our time helping people because we've got these companies that are not only creating jobs, creating opportunities, doing great work, but they're fulfilling this ecosystem for fiscal sustainability.
So cool. I love it. Yeah. Cool. Anything else you'd pass along? Anything else we could distill from you in any best practices, biggest lessons learned?
Man, I think as long as you are pursuing your passion and like letting that be a big piece of what you're pursuing, just don't lose it. Put the heart inside of everything you're doing. Yeah. Because that ultimately is going to be what matters. That drives you in the right direction.
Keeps you going.
Keeps you close to your family, keeps you like everything in the right order, right?
Yeah.
And so I think as long as you pursue your passion and let that kind of guide instead of be the afterthought, I think you can get creative and find ways to merge the two worlds together, and that's part of freedom, is you get to live fulfilled.
Totally. Some people, I love getting people's definition of freedom, just because everyone's got a different version.
Totally.
Which is, that was a journey for us, I think, a little bit, even when we started Rise 2.5 some years ago. I think we had an idea of what we thought it would look like. Yep. And as I've talked with more people, inside our industry, outside of our industry, everybody defines it differently.
100%.
And so however you define freedom, it's something worth chasing after.
That's right.
So, okay, we do allow for Q&A. So if anybody's been watching and want to chime in, do you guys anybody have any questions for Mr. O'Rourke? Is that how you pronounce your last name? O'Rourke?
O'Rourke.
O'Rourke.
You're very close.
I'm asking everybody about their last name.
Roar like a lion. That's what I tell people.
O'Rourke. Okay. All right, cool. Any questions for Shane? Don't have to have any. If you have them, fire away. Shane's in a lot. No?
It's great.
That's good? Sweet. Nice. Dude, thank you for coming out, spending time. Again, it's just, we appreciate your time and letting us learn a little bit from you. And
hopefully there was some nuggets in there that you learned.
We'll get some good nuggets. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming out.
Yes. It's amazing.
Thank you, guys.
It's just a